Hi, I'm Dr. Robert Selig, and I want to personally invite you to my upcoming workshop series, which are being held right here in my office, Saturdays at 3 p.m. for the month of March. And in the month of March, the theme is energy. So when we talk about energy, we need to be discussing the thyroid and the adrenals, how these two glands regulate our blood sugar. In today's video, we're honing in on the thyroid because we actually have an epidemic of hypothyroidism. Now, 40% of the adult American population has a thyroid dysfunction. Out of that thyroid dysfunction, over 90% of it is actually a hypothyroidism. And when we're discussing hypothyroidism, before we start taking synthetic drugs and Armour and Synthroid or antidepressants, let's look at what the thyroid gland needs from a nutritional perspective, because behind all our chronicity, all the chronic diseases, there's usually two factors that play into why we're so chronic: nutritional deficiencies and toxicities. So we know that the thyroid gland, when we're assessing the thyroid gland, 60% of all hypothyroidism has to do with anemia. Maybe it's a pernicious anemia, a iron deficiency anemia, a microcytic, macrocytic anemia. So we got to look at the blood to see, is there an underlying anemia involved? We also have to look at a protein deficiency. Now, I know you guys are eating tons of protein. I know you're slamming home the protein drinks. You're eating the protein bars. You're even eating high quality protein, but with low stomach acid, you will not be able to break down the protein into the amino acids. So we can assess your stomach acid on a hair tissue mineral analysis. We look at the sodium, because we know sodium is going to bind to the chloride, and then the sodium chloride is going to bind to a water molecule to make your HCl. If you have low sodium, you will not be making hydrochloric acid. Without hydrochloric acid, not only will you not be able to break down your proteins into the amino acids such as tyrosine, which is needed for your thyroid, and many other amino acids that play a huge role in overall the health of our physiology and the building of tissues and structures, etc. Without adequate hydrochloric acid, you're not going to methylate. Without methylation, methylation is important as oxygen. So we got to look at the hydrochloric acid. Huge player in the whole health picture. Mineral deficiencies. Maybe you have a calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium deficiency, maybe a selenium, iodine deficiency, and manganese. That little mineral manganese is needed in making thyroxine, which is your T4. We know that selenium is actually needed to convert inactive T4 to the active T3. That is absolutely selenium dependent. We also know that when we assess the thyroid gland on a hair tissue test, we have this amazing little tissue biopsy of the hair, and we can really see where the thyroid gland is operating at based on a tissue biopsy. And so we look at the calcium-potassium ratio. The calcium-potassium ratio, when it should be a 4-to-1 ratio. When it starts to go above a 10, the higher the ratio, the slower the thyroid. And so we can see how well your thyroid gland is functioning based on the calcium-potassium ratio. Because we know that calcium is involved in the permeability of the cells. It delineates what comes in and out of the cell. And when we start to have excess bio-unavailable calcium, that calcium starts to inhibit and block the permeability of the cell. Potassium sensitizes the thyroid hormone to the cell nucleus. So that calcium-potassium is a huge player in analyzing how the thyroid gland is operating. And we can look at your selenium levels, your mineral ratios, so we get a real understanding on how toxic maybe you are. We look at the lead, the arsenic, the mercury. Those metals impede how that thyroid gland operates because, you know, for example, if you have too much bromide or chlorine or mercury, that's going to kick out the iodine because you need the iodine to make that thyroid hormone. And when you're inundated with all these toxic metals and chemicals, it's going to really mess up the physiology. So we want to look at mineral deficiencies. We want to look at vitamin deficiencies. If you're deficient in vitamin A, B1, B2, B5, B6, B12, vitamin C, or vitamin D deficiency, that will all inhibit the functioning of the thyroid gland. So we see that when we look at the signs and symptoms of a thyroid problem, this is usually the #1 reason why you will go to your medical doctor, because the subclinical signs and symptoms are your inability to lose weight even though you've tried all the diets and the exercises, and yet your snail-like metabolism is really running on empty. And so we want to be able to analyze that. What will also drive people to the medical doctor is the loss of hair, the dry skin, the constipation, depression. All that has to do with energy, and that energy, as I have alluded to earlier, is derived by how that thyroid, adrenal regulate our blood sugar. And so if the thyroid has become toxic because of heavy metals or because of mineral, vitamin deficiencies, we need to assess that. And we got the perfect tools to assess where you are from a nutritional point of view, from a heavy metal point of view, so we can design programs and protocols to fit your biochemical individuality, so we're not just shooting in the dark and nilly-willy take this. This is the importance of having the information so we can really truly assess what your body needs. Because one mineral, when we start taking one mineral in excess, that can set off the whole mineral matrix because they're all interrelated. We can see just from this diagram, this mineral matrix, how one mineral can influence a whole host of every other mineral. So this is why we want to have a scientific approach to a mineral rebalancing program. And at the workshop, we're going to be discussing not just the thyroid, we're going to hit home the thyroid, the adrenals, and the blood sugar, and strategies on how to regulate our blood sugar. But the thing is, you do need to call, so please call 773-325-2225 to reserve your seat for my upcoming workshop. And look forward to seeing you there, because if there's a problem, there's always a solution. And the solution should be organic, natural approaches instead of going on this synthetic, pharmaceutical based type of thing, because that is not the answer. The answer is when we start to clean our bodies up, start to put the right nutrients into our body, then we actually have a real fighting chance of overcoming this epidemic, this plague of our day, this low energy. So call today. Thank you.